here to talk to you about gun rights and gun control and the current situation we have about what to do about guns and the actions we should take to make them safer and why we should just have them taken away. So first, I'm going to explain to you what a gun is. A handgun is designed to be able to be shot with one hand. That's why it's called a handgun. It's got a shorter barrel. It's generally used for self-defense. And then a rifle is designed to be shot from the shoulder with both hands. It has a spiral barrel, so it has a better distance accuracy versus a short distance shooting just to shoot. And then a shotgun is similar to a rifle. It's supposed to be shot from the shoulder, but it is made for short distance shooting versus long distance shooting like a rifle. And then you have an automatic gun, which is also sometimes known as a machine gun, which is automatically reloads and it can fire multiple shots with a single pull of the trigger, versus a semi-automatic, which reloads by itself, but it only fires one bullet per time you pull the trigger. So right now, in 2014, there were 586 fatal firearm accidents in the United States. So that's a lot of accidents, but if you look at the overall number of how many fatal accidents there were in general, only 0.4% of them was actually from firearms. So that's not including somebody shooting somebody to actually shoot somebody. That's, say, if a kid were to get into their parents' safe and find their gun, or if somebody were to not understand how to use a gun, or if they're stupid enough to look down the barrel of a gun. Those are the kind of accidents that they're talking about. Versus the highest one that there was poisoning. Poisoning was, I think, 30% of all of the fatal accidents. 40% of criminals don't get their guns legally. Or 40% of them get them from the black market, but majority of them get them illegally. If you're going to commit a crime, and you know you're going to commit a crime, you're generally not going to go out and buy a gun, get it registered, put it under your name so that the authorities can figure out how you got it and where you got it and who you are. 88.8% of Americans own, or 88.8 out of every 100 Americans owns a firearm. We are rated 103 on the homicide list out of all the countries, and 4.8 out of every 100,000 citizens is killed with a firearm. So the statistics aren't really as high as everybody thinks they are. Yes, guns are dangerous. Yes, guns are bad. But not all guns are bad. Guns are bad if you don't know how to use them. Guns are bad due to poor education on them. And they're bad facade that they're dangerous because nobody wants to get the education that they need on it. As people of America, we have our rights. So the Second Amendment states that we are allowed to bear arms. George Washington, in his first annual speech to Congress, said that the free people ought to not only be armed but disciplined. So basically what he was saying is that it's not a free-for-all for everybody. They don't just get to do what they want. Doesn't mean that you just get to have a gun and do what you need. It means you have to be disciplined to be able to do these things. Just like all of our other rights. If you go to jail, you lose your rights. If you can't be responsible, you lose your rights. Just like as a child, if they do something bad, they're going to sit in timeout. And they might get a toy taken away. The same way works for people with guns. It's a need to know, need to learn. If you don't have the education of how to work a gun, obviously it's going to be scary and obviously there's going to be accidents that happen. If we make it mandatory for everybody to at least learn how to put a gun safety on and at least know how to work a gun, it won't be as dangerous. That's not saying that we have to sit down for every single year and add it as a subject in school, but there can be a point in time in schools that it's required for children to see this is a gun, this is how it works, this is how to keep it safe, and this is how not to keep it safe. Simply educating people will decrease the number of accidents that there are, even though there already are so little accidents. We have the right to protect ourselves. Someone said that the way the Second Amendment was supposed to be interpreted is that the militia is allowed to have firearms. But if you think about it, because we are all American citizens, as American citizens, we are protecting our country. And in protecting our country, we are protecting ourselves. If we can't keep ourselves safe, how are we supposed to keep our country safe? We have the right to have our things, and guns are one of them. Yes, they are dangerous, but in order to have a gun, there needs to be more regulations. So the United Kingdom decided that they were going to make all handguns illegal, and crime actually went up. So now there is In the decade following Labour's Party election and banning of handguns in 1997, the number of record violent attacks soared by 77% to 1.2 million in 2007 or more than 2 attacks every minute. So, taking away firearms can result in bad things happening. A lot of people don't use their firearms in cases of, I'm going to shoot this person, but in cases of there's a person coming at me and I need to protect myself and my family. 466 violent crimes per every 100,000 people in the USA versus the 2,000 in the UK after handguns were banned. Bad people are going to do bad things. According to David Lampo, public directors of the Cato Institute, there is no correlation between waiting periods and murder or robbery rates. So he even did the research and found that, according to the March study in 2016, most state-level gun control laws do not reduce firearm death rates. 25 state laws, 9 were associated with higher gun death rates. So that's just proving the point of, if you take the guns away from the people who do know how to use them and are willing to do the work to have them legally, the people who want to get them illegally are still going to do the bad things. They're not going to listen to the laws. It's not supposed to be a free-for-all. It's not saying that we're going to hand every 16-year-old a rocket launcher. It's saying that we're going to get the education and the information out there. A lot of people are scared of guns, but have never actually been encountered with a gun, rather than more than just hearing a story, or if their family member has gotten shot, or there has been gang violence in their family. Those incidences are understandable of where you would be scared of guns, but that doesn't mean you don't need to know the information. Just because you're scared of it, you should be learning more about it and getting the information. You have your right to think what you want, and you have your right to make your own decisions. But to make those decisions, you need to be educated on them. You can't just decide because Johnny got shot, guns are terrible, and I'm not going to learn anything about them. Not learning anything about them is putting your life in more danger and other people's lives in more danger. If you have the information and you come across a gun and it is loaded and the safety isn't on, that is a dangerous situation. If you don't know how to fix it, you're putting yourself and everybody else around that unsafe gun in danger. But if you do have the information and you know how to work it, you can be there to fix it and further educate the people around you also. There needs to be better regulations. Everybody, just like a car. Every time you buy a car, you have to get the registration and insurance on it to drive it legally. So if there's a gun, you have to get it registered and be legal about it. There has to be paperwork on it. There has to be a background to it. It can't just be a random firearm floating around. That even goes for already owned firearms. You should get them registered. You should go and be like, this is what I have. This is how I have it. If we don't keep track of what guns are coming in and what guns are going out, there's no way to know who has what and what bad people are going to do with the bad things. So it's easier if all the people who are already willing to show that they have it. Basically, we just need to keep educating everybody, and we need to learn the policies that we want to vote on. A lot of people have their opinions, but they're not willing to go out there and make a difference and vote for the candidates who are a part of how they feel about guns. Or they're not willing to look into the actions that are taking place, or they're not willing to start the amendments themselves. They're willing to say, this is how I feel about something, but they're not willing to take the action. And that's what we have to do. We have to start taking action. We have to get ourselves educated. We have to do the research on our candidates. We have to do the research on all of our laws and the things that we're implementing in our country. The less people who take action, the less good that's going to help, basically. Every year, the NRA is gaining more members. That's just proof that people want to do it legally. People don't want their rights taken away. They want to show you that there is a way to have our recreational things. A lot of people enjoy using guns for hunting purposes and for protection purposes and just because they like to collect them. But you can't just take it away because a few bad people don't want to do it right. There are always going to be criminals in our country. There's always going to be people who want to do bad things. If you just make a law that says you can't have guns and no one's allowed to have them, it's not going to stop the people who want to do crimes and who want to get bad guns and who want to get them illegally. Those people are going to do it. If we don't start with where it's already working, if we just take what's working away, it's going to become even more dangerous. Any questions?
No, you did a good job.
Yes.
How do you know that even the good people aren't bad people?
Well, that's the thing. You don't know who is a good person and who is a bad person. But if everybody has the education and if you feel that you are a good person and you know how to do it, you're one less bad person. You're one less bad person going out with a gun to commit a crime. No, you're not going to be able to stop everybody who's bad, but you can increase the number of good people and the amount of information. Yeah.
I'm just curious if you came across any research of like crimes that were prevented because someone had a gun, like not necessarily using the gun, but in self-defense, someone came and wanted to mug them, and they said, "Oh, I have a gun."
Yeah, I thought I had that in there, honestly. There was a higher percentage rate of people owning a gun. They are less likely to be confronted and stuff. Like, there was a study that I read on one of the other same pages that I already have up there that the statistics were that criminals who enter a home and find that there is a gun are more likely to retreat and less likely to go forth with their crime. So when you have a burglar break in and they see that you are armed, they're not going to continue to pursue themselves. There was an incident that we know about that there was a man who tried to break into a house because there was a cop car in the front. He went in there just to shoot somebody. And the guy that was in there, if he hadn't had a gun, him and his family probably would have been dead. Because that man charged in and was ready to shoot. And the man on the other side of the door also had his gun and fired at him and was able to prevent his death and his family's death. So there's a lot of instances that, yes, guns can be protective if you know how to use them, if you have the right information. It just goes back to education.